I've been doing a few videos lately on the joys and the upside of being frugal. But what exactly does a day in my frugal life look like? Hi again. I think there's a lot of people out there that see living frugally as meaning you're living a miserable life. And I'm not going to lie, some people probably would hate living a frugal lifestyle. But to be honest, it's usually because those people are the ones that are bought into the idea that we need to always be spending money to be happy. Well, I disagree. It's hard to say what a day in my life looks like on a day-to-day basis. I managed to retire in my 20s, so I don't really need to work anymore. I do a little bit of work. The reason I retired in my 20s, by the way, was because I lived frugally. So if that's not an encouragement to live frugally, I'm not sure what else is. I've made a few videos in this, so go check them out if you've not seen them. But one of the things that I do love to do most now that I do have a lot of free time is travel. I travel quite a lot, as you can see from my other channel, Jackson Travels, so how my day looks often depends on the place that I'm at. There are several consistencies though that I make sure I do almost every day, regardless of what country or city I'm waking up in. And these are my self-improvement routines, which always involve some kind of exercise, some kind of positive mental health routine, some kind of social interaction, some kind of business related time spent doing that, and obviously a little bit of fun and entertainment too. How much does all this cost? Let's take an average day at home in the UK and find out. I rarely set an alarm to wake up as I prefer to wake up naturally. Usually though, I wake up around 8:30 and before I open my eyes or do anything at all, I start visualising my day ahead. This is because during those first 2 minutes, you're transitioning between delta and alpha brainwaves. The brainwaves during this time are called theta brainwaves, and they're strongly linked to memory and learning. For that brief space in time, they allow the subconscious mind to be open to reprogramming. This small window of opportunity is only one of 2 times per day that you can do this. Obviously, the other time is on the night as you go into sleep, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. By the way, I don't normally put my fingers to my head when I'm doing the visualization. That was just for effect for the video. So after my visualization, I open my eyes, I check the time, and then I drink a large glass of water beside the bed. This is just to help replenish fluids through the night that I've lost. After chugging this, I sit up and I get more comfortable, ready to start my meditation session. My morning meditation lasts around 20 minutes, but again, I don't set a timer, so sometimes it can go over to around 30 minutes or even longer. Or if I'm feeling extremely present, I might choose to keep going with it, and it might last an hour or even an hour and a half. Now, for me personally, I get a little subtle feeling of joy every time I know that I'm saving money. I enjoy being frugal. I think I've actually rewired the reward circuitry in my brain or something, because I get this feeling of it's like a very subtle, I call it a jolt of joy. It's like a subtle feeling of happiness knowing that I avoided paying for something if I didn't have to. And for that reason, and a few other reasons, I choose not to have my heating on. You're probably thinking it must be freezing in his house, but to be honest, the UK winters aren't that bad. Usually outside during the daytime it's about 6 degrees, and inside, as you can see, it's 11 degrees today. It usually doesn't really go below 11 degrees, and if it does, I do have an emergency plug-in electric heater. But like I said, it's normally a decent temperature inside the house, where if I just layer up, I'm fine. Also, for me, I kind of like it. It feels primal, and I think we're meant to live in the cold in the winter. I don't think we're meant to be in the house cozy and warm. And yeah, it feels kind of good to me. You can do some research on this if you want to check some resources and see for yourself that prove this. There is the Armour Pearl Divers, and of course there is Wim Hof. Go check them out. All right, I do have a couple of other little tips for staying warm, but before I get into that, there is some work to do. So one thing I've never understood is why anyone would pay for a gym membership. If you have the space at home for free weights, I encourage you to start using the money that you were spending on gym memberships to start building up your own weights collection. As soon as I had the space myself, I cancelled the communal gyms, and I started using the money that I was spending to buy my own weights collection. This only took about a year because most of my weights collection is second hand. And obviously that means that when I'm working out now, it actually costs $0. Workout complete, it's time for breakfast. I usually have oats with apple and cinnamon. It's very good value for money. I'll also quickly show you the electric balance now that we're starting the day. And then I'll have a quick shower and start layering up. As well as putting on some warm layers, I also like to use these. These are hot water bottles, and a full one will stay hot for around 2 hours. To fill it, you either need boiling hot water from a normal kettle or from one of these. This is a Kelly kettle, and again, I love the primal caveman feeling that using one of these kettles gives. So the way it works is you light a small fire using newspaper and twigs. Fill your Kelly kettle to the top, put it on top of the fire, and you wait for it to boil. I have the largest size, it's 1.6 litres, which is more than enough to fill my hot water bottles, my morning decaf coffee, and my flask that I'll later use to top up the hot water bottles when I need it. Now that I'm ready, I'll get comfortable on the couch, throw a blanket around my shoulders, and get ready to do a little bit of work. I find that mornings are the best for my brain. I feel like it's most productive and working efficiently then. So the first thing that I do when I'm comfortable on the couch is about a half an hour on my language app. I'm currently doing a 30-day challenge to learn Czech. Sometimes I'll do an extra 30 minutes in the afternoon, but today I've got other plans. Then right after that, I check my emails, check my investments, and see if anything needs to be done. When it comes to the stocks and shares and crypto investments, there's not really anything that needs to be doing. These are long-term investments that I've put money into, and I don't really buy into anything that I don't plan on holding on to for at least 10 years. So there's not really a lot to do there, but the bulk of my investments is actually property. I own 6 houses, so there's a lot of maintenance involved sometimes. It comes in waves. Sometimes there's nothing for a long time, sometimes even months where nothing needs to be done. And then you can guarantee all of a sudden there needs to be like a cluster of maintenance issues that need to be sorted. So if there's anything like that needs to be done, this is the time of the day that I do it. Some viewers might be thinking, oh, why don't you just use a management company to do that? There's a couple of reasons for this. One is that most of them don't seem to do a very good job from what I've researched. And also, obviously, I'm saving money by not using them. And to be honest, I've got relatives that can help out if need be. But there's something else that I do that I would encourage other landlords to do if there are any landlords watching this. And that is to keep your rents low. It's a little tip, because if you keep your rents low, then there's less chance that the tenant is going to be calling you up all the time for maintenance issues. I think most tenants, I think, are aware of the fact that they have a good deal, and so if there's any smaller problems, they usually choose to just fix it themselves, which is obviously better for the landlord, and they probably prefer it too, I would imagine. The next thing I do is this, YouTube. I'd say I do some form of writing, filming, or editing nearly every day, spending about an hour or maybe 2 on various videos each morning. There's actually a lot more work goes into these videos than you would probably ever imagine. I always say that for every minute of a video, it's usually at least an hour of work involved, probably more actually. So, but for me personally, I really enjoy it. For me, it's a bit like, it's like when you paint a picture and then at the end, when the video is all complete, you can kind of step back and admire the fact that you've created something that's like kind of out there in the world now. You made it, and it's just a nice feeling. Obviously, if you do feel like you get any value from these videos, if you feel like maybe it saved you some money or something, I do now have a buy me a coffee link if anybody wanted to buy me a coffee. Obviously, don't feel like you have to. I'm not encouraging anyone to do that if they don't want to. It's just, if you feel like you got some value somehow, then that would be a nice way to show a bit of kindness. Now, you might have noticed that I've not said anything about like opening messaging apps, going on social media, anything like that. And that's because I purposely choose not to open any of those things until I know that my work is done and out of the way. So oftentimes it's not until about lunchtime before I actually even go on something like WhatsApp. In fact, in general, I only go on these apps about 2 or 3 times in a day, and it's usually during the times that I'm eating. While I'm having my lunch, I'll check my messages, but because I go on there so little, there's usually a ton of messages to reply to. If I was to reply to everybody one by one, it would probably be a case of, by the time I get to the 5th or 6th person, one of the first people that I talk to has already started replying, and it would create this kind of like endless loop of me never getting off the app, because I don't like to be online for them to see that I'm online and ignoring them. So what I do instead is this. I put my phone on airplane mode, I reply to everybody, and then I take my phone off airplane mode, quickly open the app, then close the app, and then I can focus on other things, like having real life experiences with real life people and not living my life online. So the time now is around 1:30, and today my buddy James is coming to pick me up for us to get some time in nature. James has a little shih tzu called Pep Dog, so we'll be taking her with us, and as you can imagine, we're usually just shooting the shit, laughing all afternoon, having fun. I've harped on about this a lot in my other videos, but I'm going to say it again. You don't always have to be spending money to have a good time, and spending time with your friends is not only the best time you can have, but also it's completely free. While out on our walk, I'll usually take some kind of snack, like a few almonds to eat along the way. And most of the time, James has like a lifetime supply of protein bars at his place, so you can almost guarantee he's going to have some wild new flavour that you want me to try. By the way, James has a YouTube channel of his own, so I'll put links to that and to his Instagram in the description. And obviously, if you're in the Newcastle area of England, then you should definitely consider hiring him, because he's a personal trainer and he's very, very good at it. So consider that if you are looking for one. Right, next I'll get home and I'll use the hot water from the flask to refill the hot water bottle, and then I'll start preparing dinner, which today is going to be sardines with onion, mayonnaise and jack potato and a little bit of broccoli. I love this meal. It's minimal work to cook, it's full of great nutrients for your brain. Whenever I'm eating fish, I always sleep better and I feel happier, and while eating the dinner I'll jump back on WhatsApp, send out a few replies, and since I have no other plans this evening, I'm going to check what's on at the cinema. I'm actually really lucky that where I live the cinema costs less than £5 to go, and it's one of my favourite things to do. I love movies. In fact, I love them so much I've made a movie review channel, so if you've not seen that, you can go and check that out. And then after I've eaten my food, which tastes delicious by the way, I'll have a quick check what's happening with the weather, and if it's not raining or snowing, I'll set off to walk to the cinema. I do have a car, but I live less than a mile from the city centre, so it only takes around 20 minutes to walk. I love walking, and as I've mentioned in a couple of other videos, there's some brilliant reasons to walk as much as possible. Luckily there's a supermarket along the way, so I'm just going to jump in here, grab a snack for the cinema too. Obviously I don't buy food at the cinema since it's massively overpriced. There is one thing I do get from the food counter in the cinema though, and that is this: free hot water. I then add my own sachet of decaf coffee and creamer, which costs about 12 pence for the coffee and about 8 pence for the creamer, but it's way cheaper than paying £4 for the coffee from the cinema. I often do the same thing in airports too, and I highly recommend that you bring your own sachets to these places if you want to try and save money this way. I'm not really sure where the tradition of having a decaf coffee in the cinema came from, but I seem to have done it for as long as I can remember almost. One thing that I will point out as well is that I usually go to the cinema by myself, and I actually prefer it. I feel like you can really get lost in a movie when you're by yourself, and if anyone's watching and they think, oh that's weird, I wouldn't do that, then I would say just ignore those feelings, because if you wanted to go to the cinema but you're too afraid to, just do it. Nobody cares, nobody's looking, nobody's thinking anything about you, so just do it. I really enjoy going by myself. So then after the movie, I'll head home, light up the Kelly kettle again in preparation for bedtime. I'll also eat a kiwi at this time, but that's just because I'm doing a kiwi challenge at the minute. Look out for the video on that. It'll explain everything about why I'm eating kiwis on a night time, and so far it's been pretty interesting. What I don't do, or at least what I try not to do, is go on my phone again. I might have went on WhatsApp or looked at something on my phone during my walk back to the house, but when I get in, I choose not to go on my phone at all if I can help it. I try not to. I don't think it's good for you to be on your phone right before bed. I even try and avoid artificial light. I choose candles instead. In fact, this is one of the best times of the day to just have half an hour sitting by the candlelight, zoning out and just thinking about things. I feel that this time of the day, just sitting here in the dim light, you get some really good ideas coming to you. I know most people probably couldn't just sit in a room without any kind of distraction or entertainment or anything, but I love this time. I think I've always been a little bit of a dreamer, and this is when I get my best ideas, so for me it's great. Then I blow out the candles, get into bed and choose which book I'm in the mood for on Audible. I absolutely love Audible. I'm not sure I'll ever go back to physical copies. I think when you're listening to an audiobook that's read by a good narrator, it can be far superior to physical copies. Especially if you're listening to fiction, which is usually what I listen to before I go to sleep on a night. At this point it's around 11 PM on the night, and what usually happens is if I haven't fell asleep to the audiobook, maybe because it's too exciting and enthralling, especially if the narrator's good and the book's good, then what I do is I switch to YouTube and I put a hypnosis video on and I listen to that instead. This is the other time of the day, like I said at the beginning of this video, that your subconscious mind is open while you're falling asleep. So yeah, I don't see any harm in planting some positive thoughts in there while I'm drifting off, and I would encourage anybody out there to do the same, especially if you have trouble sleeping. It's really good for helping you go to sleep as well. Alright, so if we add up everything that's been spent today, we can see that it's actually less than £10, and that includes a trip to the cinema, that includes the utility bills, that includes the food. I haven't included like loans on the house or taxes or anything like that, but everything that's been spent today is there, and it's still under £10. So it just shows like you don't need a lot to have a fun, happy day. And yeah, frugal living for me is just a way of life, and I really enjoy it. Speaking of frugal living and fun videos on frugal living, there is somebody that I'd like to give a shout out to. She's called Centsible Living with Money Mom. She has a great channel, loads of frugal tips on there. Go check it out. It's really good. I'll leave a link in the description. And yeah, she's a fun character, and I'm sure you guys will like her too. All right, it's been a long one. Hopefully I'm going to see you guys next time. If you feel like you got some value from this, remember to like the video and hit the subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. All right, ciao.